6 years ago, Natasha Edmond Laperouse died from a severe allergic reaction after eating a baguette which, unbeknown to her, contained sesame seeds.
A 15-year-old girl bought a sandwich at Heathrow Airport. She checked the packaging for allergens. There were none listed. She ate the sandwich. She was dead before the plane landed. That is not a freak accident. That is what happens when the chain selling you lunch decides that labeling rules don't apply to them. And that chain is still operating, still serving millions of sandwiches every week, and still appearing on the list we're about to go through. Britain has a deep, complicated relationship with the sandwich. We invented it. We industrialized it. We turned it into a national ritual, the meal deal, the desk lunch, the damp triangle in a plastic triangle. And somewhere along the way, we handed control of it to chains that do not deserve our trust. Today we're going through 8 of the worst, and we'll end on 3 that have actually earned it. This video is about chains places with enough locations and enough resources to do things properly. The criteria are simple: hygiene records, food safety incidents, pricing transparency, and whether what they're selling you is actually what they claim it is. Some of what follows will shock you, some of it will make you angry, all of it is documented. Let's go. Number 8, Costa Sandwich Counter. So you walk into a Costa for a coffee. That's fine, Costa does coffee, but then your eyes drift sideways to the chilled cabinet, to the triangular sandwiches sitting there in their plastic sleeves. And you think, how bad can it be? Here's your answer. Costa is a coffee chain. Its entire identity, its training, its supply chain, its staff, all built around hot drinks. The sandwiches are an afterthought. They are bought in, packaged centrally, and dropped into a cabinet that is monitored by people whose primary job is making lattes. The result is a product that is frequently stale, regularly over-chilled to the point of being tasteless, and priced as though it carries the same quality assurance as the coffee it sits next to. Costa's parent company, Coca-Cola, operates over 2,600 Costa stores in the UK. That is an enormous estate, and across that estate, food hygiene inspection results vary wildly from 5-star outlets to locations that have received improvement notices. When you scale a chilled food operation across that many sites without food being the core competency, inconsistency is not a risk. It's a guarantee. There's also the value question. A Costa sandwich at a motorway service station can set you back close to £6. For a pre-made, centrally produced sandwich that sat in a fridge for an indeterminate period. The coffee is genuinely good. The sandwich has no business being on the same menu. Number 7, Sainsbury's Meal Deal. Sainsbury's has spent years marketing its meal deal as a premium offering. Better than Tesco. More sophisticated than your average supermarket lunch. The branding says quality. The reality says otherwise. Here's what has actually happened to the Sainsbury's meal deal over the past few years. The price has gone up. The portion sizes have quietly come down. The sandwich fillings have been reformulated: less protein, more filler. Customers who have been buying the same sandwich for years started noticing that it wasn't the same sandwich anymore. The name hadn't changed. The packaging hadn't changed. The price had gone up, but the product had quietly been stripped back. This is the practice consumer groups call shrinkflation, and Sainsbury's is not alone in doing it. But they are particularly egregious because they spent so long positioning themselves above it. The nectar card, the taste the difference tier, the warm lighting in the stores, all of it designed to create the impression of a retailer that doesn't play those games. They play those games. Multiple food reviewers and independent taste tests have ranked the Sainsbury's meal deal below budget rivals. Not occasionally. Consistently, when the own brand sandwiches at the discount chains beat your premium offering, you have lost the argument. Number 6, WHSmith. Picture this. You're running for a train. You haven't eaten since this morning. You sprint through the station concourse, and there it is, the only option within range. WHSmith. You stop. You look at the sandwich cabinet. And then you look at the price. And something inside you goes cold. WHSmith has been voted the UK's worst high street chain by consumer group Which? Not once. Repeatedly, year after year, shoppers give it the lowest customer satisfaction score on the British high street. The words that come up again and again in reviews: overpriced, poor quality, captive audience. That last phrase is the key to understanding WHSmith's food offer. They are not competing. They know that the person standing in front of their chilled cabinet at King's Cross at 6:45 in the morning has no other option. So the prices don't need to be fair. The quality doesn't need to be good. The sandwich just needs to exist. One customer review described paying the equivalent of more than 200% above normal retail price for basic snacks at a Belfast airport branch. Another described a chicken Caesar wrap that was, in their words, mostly dough and lettuce. Another, greed. Sheer greed. WHSmith's airport and station food operations are, in the truest sense, a tax on hunger. They know you're trapped. They price accordingly, and the sandwiches pre-packed, centrally produced, sitting in a fridge next to overpriced bottles of water are the most visible symbol of a business model built entirely on the absence of competition. Avoid if you possibly can. Pack a sandwich. Plan ahead. Do anything other than feed their margins. Number 5, Boots Meal Deal. Boots invented the meal deal. That's not a figure of speech. In 1999, Boots, a chemist, not a food retailer, introduced a sandwich, drink and snack combination for £2.50. The rest of the British high street spent the next decade copying them. It became a national institution. It became a British cultural shorthand. It became, for millions of office workers, the daily ritual that structured the working week. And then, Boots systematically dismantled everything that made it work. The price that sat at £2.50 for years has been creeping upwards and is now comfortably above £6 at many locations with a product range that has not kept pace. The sandwiches are produced by third-party suppliers, the selection is narrower than rivals, and the store environment Boots remains. First and foremost, a pharmacy is not exactly designed to make you linger over your lunch choices. There is something particularly insulting about what Boots has done here. They built their food reputation on price and convenience. They owned that space. And then they repriced their way out of it, apparently without noticing that customers have alternatives. The British public has noticed. Boots Meal Deal satisfaction scores have fallen steadily as competitors, including the budget supermarkets, have moved in with better products at lower prices. You invented the meal deal, Boots, and you've spent years quietly turning it into something barely worth bothering with. Number 4, Greggs, Britain's biggest food chain by number of locations. Over 2,700 stores. A brand so embedded in the national identity that defending it has become a personality type. And yet the numbers tell a very different story to the cultural myth. Greggs' sales growth has collapsed. A few years ago, it was growing at nearly 14% year on year. That figure has now fallen to under 3%. Analysts, not armchair critics, actual city analysts have started using the phrase peak Greggs. The company's own chief executive has warned about subdued consumer confidence and said she expects profit to remain flat. The share price has lost significant ground from its peak. None of that would matter if the product was reliable. But hygiene inspection results across Greggs' enormous estate are inconsistent, which is an unavoidable consequence of running almost 3,000 stores. Multiple individual branches have received poor inspection results. Customer reviews flag cold pastries, understaffed counters, and products that don't match the freshly baked reputation the brand has built its identity around. And then there are the prices. Greggs has raised prices repeatedly. The sausage roll that made them famous is no longer the cheap eat it once was. The proposition that made Greggs extraordinary value, straightforward product, working-class honesty, has been eroded by the pressures of being a publicly listed company that needs to keep reporting growth to shareholders. What you get at Greggs depends almost entirely on which Greggs you walk into. That inconsistency at this scale is a problem, and it's getting worse. Number 3, Tesco Meal Deal. Tesco serves more meal deals than any other retailer in the United Kingdom. The numbers are staggering, and for years the Tesco Meal Deal was a reasonable proposition. Not exciting, not premium, but fair. That relationship with fairness has quietly broken down. The price of the Tesco Meal Deal, once fixed at £3 for a decade, has been raised multiple times. It now sits at £3.60 for Clubcard members and £4 for those without. which sounds modest until you realise that Tesco's own data shows the most popular meal deal snack in the country is now a plain, hard-boiled egg, not crisps. Not a chocolate bar. A hard-boiled egg in a pot. Customers have been pushed by stealth price rises into choosing the cheapest possible snack option just to keep the overall spend bearable. The product quality has attracted serious mockery. A TikTok video reviewing a Tesco cheese and onion sandwich gathered nearly 300,000 likes. The reviewer's verdict on the cheddar: "If that's cheddar, then I'm a horse." Nearly 8,000 people commented. Many agreed. And then there's this. Tesco was forced to recall its own brand sandwich pickle after it was found to potentially contain pieces of glass. Not a quality concern. Not a labelling issue. Glass, FIFSAR recall notice is publicly available, the batch code is on record. That is not a minor supply chain hiccup, that is a food safety failure at the most basic level. Tesco's Meal Deal is still Britain's most bought lunch. That does not make it Britain's best. Number 2, Subway. There are more Subway outlets in the United Kingdom than McDonald's. Let that settle for a moment. And across those thousands of locations, a pattern has emerged that should give any regular customer serious pause. Start with hygiene. UK Council environmental health officers have taken enforcement action against multiple Subway franchise locations in recent years. At a Maryhill shopping centre branch, inspectors found mouse droppings in the front servery, the area where sandwiches are made, in the staff toilet, and in the rear storage area. The outlet was closed on the spot under emergency powers. The franchisee pleaded guilty to 5 food hygiene offences. At an Enfield branch, franchisees were fined nearly £12,000 for breaching food hygiene, pest control and contamination regulations. These are not isolated incidents. They are the documented legal consequences of what happens when a franchise model expands faster than quality control can keep up. Then there's the tuna. Subway markets its tuna product as 100% tuna. A laboratory test commissioned as part of litigation found no detectable tuna DNA in 19 out of 20 samples tested. All 20 samples contained detectable chicken DNA, 11 contained pork DNA, 7 contained cattle DNA. Subway disputes the findings and continues to deny the claims. The lawsuit was ultimately dismissed on procedural grounds, not on the merits of the testing itself. The question of what exactly is in a Subway tuna sandwich has never been fully answered. And separately, Ireland's Supreme Court ruled that the bread Subway uses in its sandwiches cannot legally be called bread in that country. The sugar content exceeds the legal threshold by a factor of 5. It's not tuna, it might not be bread. But it is apparently the most common sandwich chain in Britain. Number 1, Pret-a-Manger. There is a law named after a Pret-a-Manger customer. Natasha Ednan Laperouse was 15 years old. She bought an artichoke, olive and tapenade baguette from Pret at Heathrow Terminal 5. She checked the packaging for allergen information. There was none listed on the baguette itself because Pret's products, made fresh on the premises, were exempt from the full labelling requirements that applied to pre-packaged food. Natasha was allergic to sesame. The sesame was baked into the baguette dough. She ate the sandwich on a British Airways flight to Nice. She went into anaphylaxis. Her father administered 2 EpiPen injections. It was not enough. She died in a hospital in Nice the same day. The coroner's conclusion was explicit. Pret's allergen labelling was inadequate. The coroner added that he was left with the impression Pret had not adequately addressed the risks of operating a business selling more than 200 million items per year to people with food allergies. Before the inquest had even concluded, a second Pret customer death came to light. Celia Marsh, 42, died after eating a supposedly dairy-free flatbread that contained dairy protein. Pret blamed a supplier. The supplier called the allegation unfounded. Pret was subsequently fined £800,000 for a health and safety offence. Natasha's law requiring full allergen labelling on all food made and packaged on premises was introduced as a direct result of her death. Pret had known about the allergen risk and had not acted. That is the documented inquest-established finding. Set all of that aside for a moment, though it is impossible to truly set it aside and look at how Pret has treated its customers commercially. The company introduced a coffee subscription, raised the price, raised it again, then attempted to double it overnight. customers revolted. Pret was forced to reverse the decision publicly. They had also raised sandwich prices to the point where a sandwich, snack and drink combination at one central London branch was spotted at £13.60, prompting profiteering accusations that led the company to cut prices on its 6 most popular products. Pret a Minor markets itself as the premium choice, the ethical choice, the fresher, better option. The evidence on food safety alone makes that positioning very difficult to defend. 2 customers are dead. A law exists because of them. And Pret continues to trade on the same brand identity it had before any of this happened. That is why it sits at number 1. The 3 clear winners. Winner 3, Aldi/Lidl. Neither Aldi nor Lidl offers a traditional named meal deal. What they offer is something more honest, straightforward, well-made sandwiches and food to-go products at prices that reflect actual value rather than a marketing exercise. Which named Aldi the cheapest supermarket in the UK for 4 consecutive years. Not the cheapest for its tier, the cheapest. Full stop. And unlike the budget positioning at WHSmith or a deflated Boots deal, the product quality at Aldi and Lidl has been independently tested and repeatedly found to be strong. The Aldi bakery section alone outperforms competitors at 2 and 3 times the price. In a Channel 5 blind taste test, both retailers held their own against premium rivals across multiple food categories. The meal deal discourse in Britain has become so distorted by marketing and brand loyalty that people forget the fundamental question: does the food taste good, and is the price fair? At Aldi and Lidl, the answer to both is reliably yes. No loyalty card required. No club card tier system, no subscription, just food at a fair price. Winner 2 Co-op. The Co-op meal deal is, according to multiple independent comparisons, the best value-quality proposition on the British high street. It is not the cheapest, it is not the most glamorous, but it consistently delivers on what the meal deal was always supposed to be: a decent sandwich, a reasonable snack, and a drink at a price that feels fair. The Co-op also scores consistently well on sourcing transparency. Its fair trade commitments are legally binding and publicly audited, not a marketing slogan. The own brand sandwich range uses named farms and suppliers wherever possible. When you buy a Co-op egg mayonnaise sandwich, there is documentation behind where those eggs came from. That is not the norm in this sector, and it matters. The Co-op has not raised its meal deal price at the same rate as its competitors. It has not quietly reformulated its fillings to cut costs. It has not attempted to obscure the value proposition behind a loyalty card system. It has just consistently offered a decent product at a fair price. In a sector full of manipulation, that is genuinely worth recognising. Winner 1 M&S Simply Food. Marks & Spencer has topped the Which? Supermarket survey for in-store food quality for 4 consecutive years. In 2025, it became a Which? Recommended provider, a designation that requires meeting strict criteria across customer service, value for money, and the quality of own label and fresh products. It beat every rival, including Waitrose, including Tesco. The M&S Food to Go range is the best commercially available sandwich offer in the UK. That is not brand mythology, it is the result of blind taste tests, customer satisfaction surveys, and food quality inspections conducted by independent bodies. The sandwiches are generously filled, the ingredients are sourced to clearly stated standards. The allergen information is comprehensive and prominently displayed a particular point of emphasis, post Natasha's Law, that M&S has taken seriously at every level of its operation. M&S food sales grew by 7.8% in their most recent financial year, driven not by discounting, not by subscription tricks, but by a product people genuinely want to buy at a price they've decided is worth paying. The viral M&S food moments, the strawberries and cream sandwich, the Percy Pig integration, the seasonal specials are not manufactured. They emerge from a customer base that is genuinely enthusiastic about what they're being sold. In a video full of chains that have let their customers down, M&S is the answer to the question, what does it look like when a food chain actually does it right? The British sandwich is not complicated. Bread, filling, honest price. The fact that so many chains have found ways to make that transaction untrustworthy through hidden allergens, undeclared ingredients, inflated prices, and quietly shrinking portions is a choice. It is not the result of supply chain pressures or ingredient costs. It is a decision made by people in boardrooms to see how much they can take from you before you notice you've noticed. And now you know where to spend your money instead.